Yeah. So this is a bit of a soapbox, and it's also ironic given the whole topic of this podcast is on Christ's suffering and crucifixion and death. But I do think that as Christians, we need to be cautious of overemphasizing any particular part of the what's it called,
Cross,
the
the death,
yeah, the cross, certainly.
crucifixion.
But I mean in more broad, the Jesus moment, what's that called, the Christ experience, whatever. We have to be cautious of overemphasizing any particular piece of Christ's birth, life, ministry, death, and resurrection. Um, so here's an example of it, because this is actually a part of American Christianity, and where American Christianity, I think, gets hung up too much. So I'll illustrate this with a story. So several years ago, I was attending a church. They were having a Christmas service, a children's Christmas service, and one of the songs they chose, it started off, with Mary and Joseph, but then towards the end of the service, they began to sing this song. It's actually called the Christmas Cross, I believe. I think it's actually pretty common. I might be offending some people by bringing this up, but just follow me on this. This is an important point. Um, and the song lyrics essentially go, what is this all about? What's the point of, this Mary lady? What's the point of Joseph? What's the point of Jesus? And the chorus is about, oh well, it's all about the cross, right? It's all about the sacrifice. And then this Christmas special ended with, it was so funny. It was like a metaphor. It ended with people taking the manger scene off the stage and just bringing a cross out and just setting it there. And that was the conclusion of the service. And I remember joking with some people that I went with, and I was like, man, that is such a depressing service. I mean,
Yeah,
if Jesus can't even survive,
that's it.
yeah, if Jesus can't even make it through a Sunday morning, uh, we have no hope. But I mean, I was also really frustrated though, because I'm like, if you're going to start telling the whole story, you don't end it at the cross. You have to end it at the very least at the empty tomb. Really, it should be Pentecost and further on. But uh, the fact that that became emblematic of a greater trend in American Christianity, where we get so focused on, like, hyper focused on the cross. And I'm not at all trying to diminish the value of the cross, but but in focusing so much on it, it diminishes everything else. So, I mean, an example is, I love Michael Tate. I do. Uh, I followed him way back when he was in DC Talk. Like, I mean, you know, bro.
Just dated stuff.
But yeah, so Newsboys came out with a song. I don't know exactly when. I think it's the last couple of years.
All the gin were like, who?
Yeah, yeah. So the Newsboys came out with a song called "The Cross Has the Final Word," and like that is the theme of the song. Like, no matter what happens, like the cross has the final word. And I just remember listening to that song, and I'm like, that is such bad theology. The cross really, if we really want to center everything on the cross is actually the victory of sin, because that's where Christ died. Um, the tomb is the victory over sin, right? The resurrection is the victory over sin. Um, but again, like that, also going back, that does bring value to the cross, because that is where our sins were paid for. That's where Christ paid the penalty. But when we focus so much on it, it just it blows. It just covers everything else up to the point that we struggle to really understand the value of the incarnation. We struggle to understand the value of the virgin birth. We struggle to understand the depth of the value of the resurrection, because everything has been overshadowed by really what has become essentially an over exaggerated relic of the faith. So there's a line in a movie. The movie is called "Do You Believe?" And in a sermon that the pastor of the movie is giving, he actually says the line. He's holding up a small wooden cross, and he says, "This is not just a symbol. Like, this is the way. This is the truth." And I remember watching a commentator, Say Goodnight Kevin. He's a YouTuber. Look him up. He's awesome. Uh, he's reviewing this movie, and at that line, he just says, "Wait, that little cross is the way," like, just sort of jokingly. But I think that's a good illustration for how the cross has sort of usurped the the life and ministry of Jesus,
Yeah.
where to the point that we construct so much of our theology around the cross instead of the person of Christ, um, which I think is very, very dangerous
Yeah.
and makes me very uneasy.